Good morning, everybody. This is Stacy with Turner with our DMOpro Zoom. So happy to see each of you. And today we're going to continue on with our book Finish from John Acuff. And he's talking about noble obstacles in this. So this whole book is about perfectionism. And it's funny because I wouldn't have said that I'm a perfectionist. I guess I think of a perfectionist as somebody like who wants everything perfect and they just do everything like to the T, everything exact. And I really am not because I will my one of my mottos is like just say yes and figure it out as you go along. And I have found a lot of times that's true. Like I'll figure out what the components of what I need or the skill set or whatever that is as I start working. But there were some things in here that I caught myself. I was like, oh, yes, I do deploy that distraction for sure. And then other people, I've heard them say over the years, I'm just a very black or white person. It's this or this. It's an all or nothing. And I've thought, like, how can you be all or nothing? There is no all, and then there is no nothing. Like, there has to be something in between. And I just kind of thought, there's no way. There's no way somebody is an all or nothing person. And then I met the girl that was absolutely the all or nothing person, and she totally changed my perspective that she was um, all or nothing. So she decides, I'm not going to take Juice Plus. I'm going to just juice. I'm going to get a juicer and everything. So I said, well, before you buy a juicer, use mine because it's up in the cabinet. I don't use it. Like somebody should put some miles on that thing before you invest in that. Go like try this. So she does. So she doesn't just, ease into it with some like apples and some carrots. Nope. It's full on greens, kale, the celery, the spinach, like she goes all in. And like there's no, let's make it a little bit palatable, right? Like there's other good fruits and vegetables that we could add in there to make it taste good. Nope. All greens, only greens because it's all healthy. I don't know, like that doesn't make sense. Like it's still fruits and vegetables, but no, all greens. So it's horrible, right? Like I couldn't drink it. Definitely not a glass of it, maybe like a shot. It was so strong. So nope, she's done. She brings me the juicer and she brings me all of the greens that she had bought. Like, I don't even know how much money worth. And I was like, sure, I'll take them and let's do Juice Plus instead. Like, if you're not going to juice, then let's do Juice Plus. Okay, yes. All in, buys all the things Juice Plus, buy the shakes, buys the capsules, never opened the bottles. I couldn't even get her to ever open them. And then, like, for 4 months, I tried to get her to swallow capsules. Nope, never even opened them. Tried to switch to the gummies. Nope, not having it. She brings them all to me one day, all of the shakes. It's like 5 months later. She hasn't even touched it. I can't get her money back, right? I was like, I'll pay you for it then. I'll buy it from you. And she's like, nope, it's fine. So all or nothing. And it was usually a nothing. And she would talk herself out of good things because she made it so difficult. So I don't know if you connect with that in a little bit in some ways, or if you know somebody in your life that is that way. And that's what he's talking about in this book, and it's called Noble Obstacles. So last week we were talking about hiding places, and noble obstacles are somewhat similar. Okay, so I'm going to read to you from this and then we're going to kind of talk it through. But a noble obstacle is what perfectionism throws at you next if you deal with hiding places. It's the very good reason you cannot pursue your goal. Perfectionism will tell you if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right, right? If you're going to juice, you might as well drink every green vegetable there is and nothing that tastes good. And when we leave the idea of right undefined, it tends to get complicated or doesn't taste good, usually in one of two ways. In the first kind of noble obstacle, perfectionism sneakily tells you you cannot move forward until you do something else. So that word until. I can't do X until Y. And in the second kind, perfectionism tells you that you're reaching your goal, you could actually produce bad results, and then that would make you a bad person. So would-be entrepreneurs often express fear that they'll become workaholics if they start a business. They're one step away from a messy divorce if they dare make a go at their goal, and that's just not worth it. Better to play it safe and just think about what they could have done if they really wanted to. And they're not avoiding avoiding the business. They're protecting the sanctity of marriage. How noble. A noble obstacle is the reason Bill is never going to clean his garage. Bill knows he will never meet his goal, but he also knows he can't announce to his wife that he will never clean the garage. Instead, when pressured by her to clean it, he says, "Great idea, I will. Let's have a garage sale first." But his wife knows what he's doing. Bill is not taking the first step towards cleaning the garage. He's employing a noble obstacle. At the heart of it, a noble obstacle is an attempt to make your goal harder than it has to be, so you don't have to finish, but you can still look respectable. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. At the heart of it, a noble obstacle is an attempt to make your goal harder than it has to be, so you don't have to finish, but you can still look respectable. Right? Like buying only green vegetables and juicing only greens made it hard. It's not going to taste good. You and I know that. She even knew that. But she looked like, she tried juicing, it just wasn't for her, right? Like greens just don't mix well with her physique. I don't know, but like she made it so hard. I wouldn't even drink this stuff. So Bill and his wife haven't had a garage sale once in 20 years that they've been married. He's never even mentioned it until the idea until he was pushed into a corner. And at that moment, he created a noble obstacle. Think about the myriad of steps a garage sale adds to the real intent of the project. What was once a one-step goal, so to clean the garage, turned into a 16-step project. That's never going to happen, right? Some noble obstacles are personal and unique, and others are common and easily identified, such as the word until. Okay, so until is just perfectionism wearing a Halloween costume. Karen won't start her blog until she's checked in with a copy lawyer first. Now, before she starts writing, Karen has to save up for legal fees. It's brilliant. It's a distraction, right? I know some guys who say they can't work out until they pick the best work exercise program. So instead, they don't choose a single one because they just haven't had time to do all of the research. The tricky thing is that until often wears a cloak of responsibility. It pretends that it's not about being lazy, but about making sure that everything is in order before you start. So until I know why I have an issue with food, I can't walk around the block at a brisk pace for more minutes today than I did yesterday. Until I know what my entire book is about, I can't write the first 100 words. Until I know where all of the stuff is in every room of my house is going to be going, I can't clean this one room. Until I get rid of distractions, I can't get anything done. Another example, a cousin of mine, she was telling me she had bought this fireplace that she was going to put together and put in her living room. So I was just talking to her and I said, "Hey, did you put up the fireplace? Like, where did you decide to put it? Which one did you decide to buy?" And she was like, "Well, I bought this one and it's been delivered, but I haven't put it up yet." And I said, "Oh, okay." She said, I can't put the fireplace in until about an hour later, we were finished with the conversation. I was shocked. The but I can't do that. I can't move the piano until, and I was like, "Wait, do you play the piano?" "No." "Oh, do your boys play the piano?" "Nope." "Why do you have a piano?" "Well, it was my great grandmother's piano and I just can't get rid of it. I would feel guilty." And I was like, "But you don't play the piano and then it just becomes a catch-all. You said you just put stuff on it. Like, let somebody else have it. Somebody else could really use that and love it. And maybe a church needs a piano and you could donate your piano to them." And she's like, "Well, I can't do that until I move. And then there's baseboards that have to be put in, but I can't do those until I finish the floor. But I can't finish the floor till I move the piano. And I can't move the piano until I'm not kidding, girls. It was an hour later, her until list was there. And I was like, I'm exhausted. I just was curious about the fireplace. But now in my head, I'm like, I've got to go help her. I can't even imagine going to help her because the list is so long and she won't do one thing until another one. She said she couldn't clean off the kitchen cabinet because she couldn't put the stuff that goes into the boys' craft room I was like, how old are the boys again? They're like 26, 24. I was like, those boys don't need no craft room. They don't even do crafts. Like, what are we talking about? A craft room for the boys? Like, that was probably a goal. I'm not kidding. Probably 15 years ago, she had for them, right? Like, she had this idea she was going to have a craft room in them. They don't. They don't want it. They don't need it. They do not need, like, just go put the stuff in there, but she can't until the countertop gets put in. I mean, it was just insane. So she's living in absolute chaos as a perfectionist, like 100%, because that until just keeps answering in. And the stress in her mind, like how that's impacting her moving forward with anything in life. It was overwhelming to me, so overwhelming. So that was, I was like, that was a great example. I was reading this book and I was like, hey, I have a book for you. Have you heard of this book? It's really good. I think it might be helpful. But I'm sure she's like, well, I can't read that book until I finish another one. I'm sure there was an until in there. So until I get rid of distractions, I can't get anything done. There will always be one more amazing distraction. Our mind will do anything to avoid the challenge of focusing on something, especially when it's so big as like cleaning out your, whole house. Like, oh my goodness, right? The second you hear the word until pop into your mouth, spit it out. The second kind of noble obstacle says if then. So the first one was until, this one is if then. You might decide to avoid eating healthy because if you buy healthy food, then you'll be poor. So because you want to be wise with your finances, you'll stop moving towards your goal. Pursuing a goal is a solitary activity and therefore a selfish use of my time. So if I do that, then this could happen. You're employing an if-then noble obstacle if you are only offering yourself two extreme options. I juice every single green that's in the grocery store, or I don't juice at all. I take Juice Plus every single day, or I don't take it at all, right? So if then, I have to clean every room in my house, or I can't get started with anything. So those two extreme options. Either you don't sell your product or you become the most obnoxious Juice Plus salesperson you've ever met. Either you hold a complicated 1,000-item garage sale or you don't sweep your garage floor at all ever. There is no in between, just two extremes. That's the land of noble obstacles. So instead of making things complicated and difficult, instead of giving in to noble obstacles, finishers stack the odds before they even start, which sounds a little bit like cheating. But what he's talking about is doing something to make it just that much more easy. So he said sometimes stacking the deck is planning your important work for in the morning when you're fresh and you're doing the busy work in the afternoon. Sometimes stacking the odd is buying two of your toddler's favorite stuffed animals so that the world doesn't end when she inevitably leaves one at the rest stop outside of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. You guys ever been there with one of your littles at one time? So sometimes it's just having a plan in place that in case something like that, or just kind of what can you do to make it easier? Perfectionism always makes things harder and more complicated. Finishers make things easier and simpler. So the next time you're working on a goal, I dare you to ask the following two questions during the middle of the project. Could things be easier? Could things be simpler? Am I making this too hard? Am I making this impossible? Right? Selling 5 things is a lot easier and simpler than selling an entire garage full. Drinking carrot and apple juice with a handful of greens in it is a whole lot easier than trying to do shots of green goodness, right? So having finished that goal, we might have easily been, or had he finished that goal, if he had just picked 5 things to sell in the garage sale, just list 5 things on Marketplace or throw 5 things in the trash, then just finishing that one goal might have made it easier and made him more ready to sell 10 or even 20 next time. If you want it done, aim for simple. Okay, so thinking about that, how can you make it easier and could things be simpler? Are you guys more of a until type person? Do you say, I want to do that, but I need to, until I get this done or until this. How does that look like with our Juice Plus business? I want to, I need to make some calls to my team. But this desk is a mess. Until I get this area organized, I just can't think. I just cannot focus, and I've just got to get this cleaned up, right? Until I get better at my customer care, I don't really need to be bringing anyone else in as customers because I don't take good care of them and then they just cancel their orders. Until I get really good at the numbers with this business and understand how I get paid and what PB and POB is and what that's going to be in my next paycheck, then I really should wait until I get that done before I bring on new team members, because I want to make sure that I'm directing them correctly. Until I get my house organized, I can't host an event here, including sweeping out the attic and organizing every bathroom closet I have. Until I get that done, it's just not the best timing for me to do an event here in my house. Until what is that until for you? Is there something that's got you guys tripped up on that until, or that you've recognized in the past and you've been able to overcome? I would love to hear from you. Remember, unmute yourself because you're all muted, but have you ever used that until for that whole perfectionism to show up?
Stacy, I definitely have, and I still do. I think of those of us that have been in the business a long time. Sometimes you're like, oh, I just need to tweak my verbiage a little bit. Maybe I'll wait and let somebody help my verbiage. Maybe you don't feel like your text or how you're going to call somebody is perfect. And then the other thing that I used to get hung up on a lot is, which video do you send them? It's just find one to do it. Just get them some information. But boy, that I love that until. It's just such a, I was glad I was muted because I was laughing the whole time. It was just incredible.
Yeah, when we see that in ourselves, you're like, that's me. Anyone
Yeah,
else?
certainly when I was first in the business, it was all about perfection and procrastination, because perfection's not possible. And I put things in my calendar. What's in my calendar, I honor. And when I honor my calendar, I get results from my actions. And like I have my things from my tabling event yesterday, and right after this, I'm following up with each person. And in the past, that wouldn't happen because I didn't have it in my calendar.
Yeah, so you made it simpler, by getting a calendar system that does work for you. Systems always are going to simplify things, right? Because a system is easy to continue to follow. If you're always having to recreate a system or come up with a system, that's a noble obstacle. But a lot of times it's just pick a system. Our DMO planner is a system. If we incorporate it, if we use it, if we deploy it, if we're putting stuff on there, if we're tracking our conversations, that system will work, because that creates consistency. Deborah's not trying to think about, okay, now what do I do with these, right? She knows the system is this and she's blocking off time for it. That's a great example, Deborah, of like making it simpler by just taking a step forward. So that's a great one. Thank you. Anyone else? Any untils in your mind?
I have a quick question. I have not been doing the sourdough, and I'm not making excuses, but I feel like I need to do better at keep working on what I'm doing, and that's adding something else. So I feel like it's kind of my word for the year is simplify. I kind of changed my word a while back because I realized I had too many coals in the fire. So I'd love you if anyone wants to talk on that. And so, yeah, so that's kind of my question.
So that's a great something to look at, Lisa, because the next greatest thing, right, can become a distraction that keeps us from just doing the activity that we know we need to do. So the next shiny object is for sure, like, can we chase that next thing, this next perfect thing, this this situation, this whatever, right? And never actually employ the action to get it done. So I think that that is something to definitely be careful of. What I have found the sourdough classes do for me is I felt like I was talking to kind of the same people. This is a small community. And I was, I'd spoken to a lot of the people within my circle groups. And so I needed to do something to get into different networks of people. And one of them, there's different things. I was like, okay, there's a book club here. I've not gone into the book club. I like to read. I could do that. I had a couple of different ideas of things that I could start getting into the community, and I still want to. That's an important aspect of marketing ourselves, right? We talk about that as well. Like, we are network, marketers. We have to be marketing through different networks. So if we're staying stagnant, I find that sourdough is just a different type of market that attracts people that I wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to have a conversation with. The last two events that I did, it was full of people. I've never met these ladies, or I've met them and we're Facebook friends, but I don't know them. I've never had a conversation. I don't have like a circle of influence around them, even like to get to know them. We don't have mutual friends that would connect us at lunch even, but the sourdoughs brought them in to that circle of mine. And then now I'm able to, at the event I shared Juice Plus, and then I was able to invite all of them to our coffee chat and just see who was interested. And I do get orders and team members almost every time we've gotten one. Yeah, every time we've ended up with a team member from one of it and a couple of customers. And sometimes it's just being patient with that process. These are new people to me. Not everybody's ready to order the first night, right? But they are sort of walking into our classes with some sort of awareness of gut health, and that sourdough is better for gut health. Like, they kind of know that. And so this is a solution to further them along that track. And they're thankful for the time that we took to teach them the class. It is time consuming, and I'm sure that there are ways that you can simplify it from the way that I do it. I just enjoy the act of hosting and preparing things and making it look nice and having everything ready. And they have said, thank you so much for doing that. But it is time. Like, tomorrow, I'm driving to Alamogordo tonight or this afternoon. And Kathy, if you're watching, Kathy, we'll have to give you an update on it. We're doing 24 people tomorrow. So 12 in the morning and 12 in the evening. I have been feeding my mother like you can't even, I've been force feeding her, like totally fattening up. It's like this 2-gallon jar of stuff. Like, it's over the top, right? Like, you don't have to go to that extreme. And it didn't start that way, right? Like, I didn't start that way. I started with making one loaf of bread, and then it worked. I was like, hey, I think I could teach a class on this. Like, there's tons of resources. So I think that the fear of doing a sourdough event probably is if I start doing sourdough events, then I won't be able to make the contacts that I need to, or I won't be able to do the follow-up that I need to. So just be careful you're not employing it as a if then. If I start making sourdough, then I'm going to have to get chickens and goats, and my life is, now a homesteader. Careful, it kind of slides that way. So, that's sort of the perfectionist. If I teach a sourdough class, then I have to do it like Stacy and have 18 people in my home. Right? It doesn't have to be. It could be 5 people that you teach to. It could be 3 people that you teach the class to. But it is a way that kind of draws people in. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Stacy, I will say I did reach out to a friend who came to a tower to table last year. She brought sourdough. This was before sourdough was the rage. And so I did reach out to her, and after her husband has his hip surgery, he's going to have me over and kind of walk me through the steps. And I think for me, that's a better way, because I don't have to, I'm just not into doing all the research. I know it distracts me, and I know me well enough to know, but I thought, well, that's a good option because I'm visual. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that piece, and maybe talking to them more about Juice Plus, because they haven't tagged in on it yet.
Right. So there's a video that somebody, Mimi Blankenship, if you're watching Mimi, she does a great video of like a virtual class. So you're watching her teach the class. Michaela Peterson has one of those. I just followed the steps on the paper. So I didn't have to do a ton of research. I watched part of the video, I followed the steps, but I'm not a perfectionist, right? Like I really am not. I wasn't like, I have to have all the things in a row before I can start this. I was like, let's just make a loaf and let's see what happens. And I use my starter and I hydrate. I just followed the instructions and it turned out beautifully enough that I was like, all right, I could teach this. I just did what the paper said. I'm going to teach that. So, thinking that too, like I'm going to have to do all of the research. I can't make a loaf of bread until I do all of the research. That's the until, right? So we could just be making it more complicated than it is. There are people that have just made this beautifully simple, so beautifully simple. And then I've given you guys a 9-minute message that I explain how it works, like what it looks like in my class and how I bring Juice Plus into the conversation. No idea why my dog is barking. She never barks. So yeah, it could be just that you're, thinking in your mind, it's harder than it is. And that's probably something for a lot of us to recognize. Do we think that this is harder than it truly is?
I just have to the harder than it is. I remember, and I've been a partner for 17 years now, and the old connection call, three-way call. And I remember thinking at the beginning how difficult like a three-way call was going to be. And I remember practicing with my husband and me, and at the time we had like a home phone line, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. I was making it so difficult. And then now with the advancement of cell phones too, it's even easier, like on an iPhone where it tells you exactly, oh, there it is. Oh, click merge. But I remember making that more complicated than it needed to be. And then we lost Stacy. She's checking on her dog.
Peg, I do see that your hand is raised. If you want to go ahead, I know Stacy would love us to keep going.
I was going to ask her, where is that 9-minute message about how she incorporates Juice Plus into her sourdough training?
Okay, sorry, girls. I had to run in. There was somebody at the door. I have that in, it's like Stacy's sourdough resources. It's a boards link. I can put it into our DMO Voxer chat again and give that to you guys. It's 9 minutes and then there I got cut off, so it's another 2 minutes. But I'm talking about how I incorporate Juice Plus in a very strong way into the sourdough, because we're not wasting time just teaching people bread. It's a great alternative. It's a healthy option, but it's not going to change their health like the capsules do. We know that, right? And that's where our business is built in. Oh my goodness, I was running. Business is built in, actual residual income with our Juice Plus customers, not in sourdough classes. So the sourdough classes are just something that's going to bring people to us and give us the opportunity to serve the community. And I will say, like, people are very positive about that and they're so thankful, and they're like, thank you so much for what you're contributing to our community. And it's fun to see different people posting their bread and they're making it for their family and they see it as a positive resource too. I just kind of feel like it's an overarching positive thing. Just keep it simple. A health funnel, that's a good way to put it. So the until, that's the one we most often employ. Nancy, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say I was definitely an until person. I didn't have my first salad party. I started in the business, but I didn't really become active until October of 22. But I didn't have a salad party until like May or June, because I was like, oh, but my house is so old and funky. And one of my girlfriends said to me that she actually said to Alita how my house was awful. And I was like, how can I have people over to my house? It's awful, And then Alita came over and she said, it's fine. Don't worry about it, And had a party and it was great. I got new customers. I've only had one since then, and I've had a wine and wellness party. I mean, I've gone to, and yesterday we went, one of our people had a sourdough party, and I brought my cousin, and I haven't done one since like May. And so it's been a while, and it was there were 16 people. And I was like, oh my gosh. And there's no way I could do that in my house because my house is tiny. So I could probably do 8 or 10, but I was kind of overwhelmed too. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many pieces that go into it. And she did a great job, and she was very organized and very intentional about covering everything. But I kind of felt like I was scattered, if that makes sense. So I want to go to 1 or 2 more before I host one.
Every time I teach one, I feel scattered. I'm like this little chicken running around trying to get everything, get it all set up. And then everyone walks in and I'm like, hi, how are you? As if everything has been like easy peasy going up to that.
And but what you said earlier about you get new partners, she got a new partner and she got a tower garden. So she, from
2 tower gardens.
2 tower gardens.
2 tower gardens. Oh, so, it was great.
Yeah. That perfectionism, just rotten. What you got,
And
Michelle?
I just wanted to say the first party, it was one of my partners that hosted the party. And her first party, if you remember, Nancy, she didn't do the sourdough workshop. She brought in a friend who knew sourdough because she didn't know anything about it. So it's all good.
Right. Yes, that's a great one. Employ a friend that does. The first one I did, I was a little bit like, I've never taught people how to do it. I've made 2 loaves and they've been okay, but maybe I should bring in somebody. I had a friend that she's like, I love sourdough. I do sourdough. And I said, hey, could you come? I about gave her a heart attack because I was like, we're going to put some salt. And we measured, we were following the thing, but she weighs everything exact. And I look over and Julie's like, oh, like she's fainting because I'm just like, it's just fun. Let's not be so serious about this. Let's just make some bread. And, she was laughing the whole time. And I was like, it's this scoring thing for bread. And she's like, it's called a lame. And I was like, yeah, ask her for the details. Like I learned it as I went along, but I didn't know all the names exactly or what proofing meant or whatever. If we're waiting till we know all of the details, it just is never going to happen. And I think about there's a podcast that we like to listen to. She was talking about, it was her 200th episode. And it was like, oh my gosh, it has to do with it's a true crime episode or podcast. And when we're traveling, it's what we end up listening to. Our son and his wife got us started on it. And so when we're traveling, that's what we listen. It was our 200th episode. And we had backed up and we had listened to a bunch and we had gone like to the very first one. And it wasn't that good, right? Because we were used to listening to the like 150th and 175th episode. And compared to the first one that she did, it wasn't that great, but she had to start at the not great one. Because the first time she did it, she learned something in that one. And then she tweaked it just a little bit. And she changed a little bit more. And then just a little bit more. And she got better. And she learned this. And they got a different speaker. And then they had soundproof walls. I mean, it's like totally changed now by the 200th one. Same concept, but her storytelling is better. Her reading out loud is better. She's not saying as much, like there has to be progress. Progress doesn't happen in perfection because perfectionism is what leads to paralysis. And if you're paralyzed, if you just can't move forward because it's not going to be perfect, you never learn how to do it. You never get to progress through the imperfection of learning and doing something. So I really want you guys to think a little bit deeper. Where is this coming from? where has this little seed of perfectionism, when was that planted in your mind? And often it's when we were young. Something was implanted into our minds a long time ago, something that somebody said. Maybe it was just kind of the culture of your family at some place and some time. Then this idea of perfectionism, either to earn someone's favor or to avoid their wrath or their anger or their displeasure, right? So if I have to be perfect so that I can make sure that my dad, either I get his attention or he's not mad at me, that little thing, even so many years later, is still impacting your decision making now. And it's one of the reasons why I just really encourage you, go back and, do the work that you need to do on yourself. Is there something that's keeping you stuck and holding you back? Lean into that and find out what that is, discover what that is, work on that with someone, whether it's me or my mother-in-law that does that. I'm sure we can find other people to recommend to you guys, but that really makes a big difference. And then just, leaning into books that deal with perfectionism. If you recognize it, how are we going to get out of it if we don't learn how to get better at it, right? Like there's some really simple things in here. Next time you say until or if then, if you find yourself in those conversations, you'll recognize it. I know you, little perfectionism sneaking in here. I didn't invite you in, but I see who you are. And then you can deal with it, right? Like once you identify it, you're like, okay, I know what that is. And then I'm not a perfectionist. I don't have to be perfect. We're just going to get going and we're going to learn along the way. And like you talk your little self back into the game because you're like, it's okay. You're safe. This can be fun. Other people are doing this. You don't have to judge yourself. Other people are not going to judge you. Let's just move forward. And it's the fear often of the unknown that holds us captive. And that unknown is often made up anyway. It's not even a realistic thing, right? Like if I start doing sourdough, then I have to buy chickens. Well, nobody says you have to buy chickens. Like maybe some people buy chickens, but we don't have to buy them. Like you don't have to go that extreme. But whatever this, if then is typically made up. It's not even a realistic place. It's a fear that we've allowed to grow in our minds, but it's really just a distraction to keep us out of activity in the moment. So recognizing it for what it is and just like, I don't want to play that game. I don't want to play with perfectionism. He's not a good friend. He's not nice. He's not kind. He doesn't let me get to the places that I want. Like I'm not going to let him in my car. We're not going on a trip together. You're out. We don't play well together. So I hope that encourages you guys today. And I'll be headed to Arizona in a couple of weeks. I think it's the 21st. If you haven't seen the information, if you're near Phoenix and want to join us, we'll be doing a business training and I'd love to see you guys. I'll put this recording up. I will not wait so long. Last week I missed it was like 24 hours later, I realized, I never uploaded that. So I'll put that in there. But again, if you have not read the book, it's great. Finish by John Acuff. Excellent. I've listened to it a couple of times now and reading back through it. So hope you guys find that helpful and you all have a wonderful Monday.